I have chosen Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard to frame my ideas about a life performing the works of others, many of them great masters that lived in places and times that I have only been able to start imagining as I grow older. Kierkegaard's work speaks about the human despair, something that in his own words is both, quote, an advantage and a drawback, end quote. As a cellist, I find myself in the ambiguous position of imagining and trying to convey the intentions of the composer, while I also try to imagine, realize, and assert my own artistic personality. Do I want to enter the mind of the imagined composer until I become someone else's medium? Or would I rather find out who I am as a cellist and become myself? It is within these two positions that I carve my path. Biographies, characterizations, literature consumed by the composers, and a large number of other sources feed my ways to imagine someone else's mind. To illustrate that side of things, I visit in this recital the writings of E.T.A. Hoffmann and his famous writings about the performer's obligation of being true to the work while scorning, quote, the exploitation of his personality, end quote. Then I visit a description that an anonymous journalist made of Eugène Ysaÿe in an interview for the Los Angeles Herald newspaper in 1908. And lastly, I visit a short fragment of Henry James's Owen Wingrave, a text that served the libretto that Benjamin Britten used in an opera that was completed 6 years after his first Suite for cello solo. That work has some similarities to the cello work. It is also worth noting that Owen was a pacifist character that rejected to be an active member of the army as Britten did himself. On the other hand, I also look for some light in my despair of willing to be myself. To that end, I visit short excerpts of writings by András Schiff and his appeal to, quote, a little bit of fantasy, end quote, when exposing his ideas about the use of pedal in Bach's keyboard works. Ray Bradbury and the powerful exposition of the tragic consequences that a Martian suffers in its encounter with humans when willing to be, quote, something almost better to them, an idea shaped by their minds, end quote. And Goethe's Faust famous sentence about what he is willing to obtain from Mephistopheles in exchange of nothing else than his own soul. Kierkegaard and Goethe have two opposite visions, pessimistic versus optimistic, of the fate of a person that, in defiance, is in despair for willing to be herself. I am still wondering what it will be like for me. Despair is a sickness in the spirit, in the self, and so it may assume a triple form. In despair and not being conscious of having a self, despair improperly so called. In despair and not willing to be oneself, in despair and willing to be oneself. Søren Kierkegaard. The genuine artist throws himself into the work, which he first comprehends from the point of view of the composer and then interprets. He scorns the exploitation of his personality in any way whatever, and all his poetical imagination and intellectual understanding are bent towards the object of calling forth into active life, with all the brilliant colors in his command, the novel and enchanting images and visions which the master, with magic power, has shut up in his work. E.T.A. Hoffmann. If some of us happen to believe that music is more than just a series of notes and sounds, then a little bit of fantasy is welcome. András, Schiff. He has strong German characteristics in his face. His hair is dark, and his large eyes are a peculiar blue-gray that express constantly his varying shades of thought. His brow is high and wide, the brow of a scholar as well as a gifted artist. An anonymous journalist, Los Angeles Herald. Mr. Coyle about Owen. He declines to go up. He chucks the whole shop. Lechmer. He doesn't want to go to Sandhurst. Mr. Coyle. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He gives up the army altogether. He objects. Mr. Coyle, this time to Owen. What are you going to do instead then? Owen, I don't know. Perhaps nothing. Nothing great at all events. Only something peaceful. Henry James. You don't question the providence. If you can't have reality, a dream is just as good. Perhaps I am not their dead one back, but I am something almost better to them, an idea shaped by their minds. He lied on the stones, melted wax cooling, his face all faces, one eye blue, the other golden, hair that was brown, red, yellow, black, one eyebrow thick, other thin, one hand large, one small. He's dead, someone said at last. Ray Bradbury. The self wants to enjoy the entire satisfaction of making itself into self, of developing itself, of being itself. It wants to have the honor of this poetical, this masterly plan according to which it has understood itself. And yet, in the last resort, it is a riddle how it understands itself. Just at the instant when it seems to be nearest of having the fabric finished, it can arbitrarily resolve the whole thing into nothing. Søren Kierkegaard. Then, to the moment I could say, "Stay a while, you're so beautiful. The trace of my days on earth cannot fade for aeons." Johann Wolfgang from Goethe. Before I play my last piece, I want to thank two Natalies. First, my beautiful wife Natalie for being a source of constant inspiration, and also thank you to my beautiful friend Natalie Vargas Nedvesky for inviting me to her great series. Lastly, I want to thank all of my students for always pushing me to better understand what it is to be a cellist.